Welcome to my 2019 NBA mock draft / predictions video. My name is Josh, your enviers. Let's jump right into it, talking about the first overall pick selected by the New Orleans Pelicans, being Zion Williamson. He is one of the most hyped up prospects coming into the NBA, considering he had his own Zion cam in the draft lottery, which was kind of cringe. Anthony Davis already has said, no matter if they get the first overall pick, he still wants out. That's most likely going to be the case. And it's interesting that the Knicks and Lakers have a third overall pick, two teams that really want to go after Anthony Davis. Same thing for the Boston Celtics, even though if they don't have a high pick this year, they have the assets, and we'll see what happens with the Anthony Davis situation. But Zion Williamson is ultimately going to be wasting his prime years in New Orleans. With the second overall pick, I have the Memphis Grizzlies selecting Ja Morant. This one was a tough one for me, picking RJ or Ja. I ultimately ended up with Ja, considering the Grizzlies already have their small forward of the future in Chandler Parsons. So why would you need another small forward? That's a joke, by the way. But Ja's going to the Grizzlies, the replacement to Mike Conley, which opens up the Grizzlies' trade possibilities of trading Mike Conley for other parts to fill out their roster. With the third overall pick, I have the New York Knicks selecting RJ Barrett. The 2 and 3 pick are kind of interchangeable for me, but RJ will go along nicely with Dennis Smith Jr. or whatever point guard they are able to get in free agency, or if they decide to trade this pick to try to get Anthony Davis. I don't think the third overall pick alone is enough. They'll probably have to throw in guys like Kevin Knox, and honestly, what other kind of asset do the Knicks have? But with the fourth overall pick, I have the Los Angeles Lakers selecting Jarrett Culver. The talent drops off from 1 to 3 to then onwards to 4. Darius Garland's a popular pick for this position in the draft simply for the fact that he's signed with Clutch Sports, but it doesn't make sense for the Lakers to draft another point guard and to keep recycling their young point guards every 2 years. Jarrett Culver, in my opinion, is the best fit, even though ultimately he probably won't be a Laker considering LeBron James hates rookies. So this pick is most likely getting traded, but it's the best available. With the fifth overall pick, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers selecting DeAndre Hunter. This is the part of the draft where it gets interesting considering the talent drops off. DeAndre Hunter had a great March Madness tournament, and because of it, he'll most likely soar up in the draft, when in reality, I feel like he's barely a top 10 prospect. I personally pick Cam Reddish over DeAndre Hunter, but Hunter, for some reason, NBA scouts and NBA GMs, the play in March really elevates some players, and Hunter is one of those players that I feel have elevated his draft stock. With the sixth overall pick, I have the Phoenix Suns selecting Darius Garland. The Suns desperately need a point guard, and Darius' draft stock has climbed up immensely, even though if he tore his meniscus at Vandy last season and hardly played any games. But people are saying if he didn't get hurt, he'd be right up there with Ja. Who knows what's going to happen? So if he has all that potential that people say he does, I guess this is the best pick for Phoenix. With the seventh overall pick, I have the Chicago Bulls selecting Kobe White. Now, they have a point guard already in Chris Dunn, but apparently they're not satisfied with Chris Dunn being their long-term point guard plan at that spot. By drafting White, it gives the Bulls an opportunity to finally have some backup point guard depth and possible future starter at that position. If this pick does end up happening, the Bulls are going to be running up and down the court and are going to be a fun team to watch next year, or at least they should be. With the eighth overall pick, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Jackson Hayes, a center that could go alongside John Collins, Trae Young. That's a nice little core right there. And although he didn't put up the most numbers in college, the potential for him is apparently great, being a shot blocker and a stretch that can shoot the three. We'll see how that translates for him. He could either be, Mo Bamba in his rookie year, or eventually become a player like Jarrett Allen, considering both those players are his comparisons, considering the college team they played for was Texas. With the ninth overall pick, I have the Washington Wizards selecting Cam Reddish. This one's an interesting one for me because I feel like Cam Reddish is a top 5 talent in this year's NBA draft. I talked about it a little bit when talking about DeAndre Hunter. I feel like Cam Reddish would be a perfect pick for the Cavs, but because of the play in the tournament with Virginia and Texas Tech, those two guys, Hunter and Culver's draft stock went up, And Cam Reddish's, I think it might have slipped. So if he does fall to the Washington Wizards, it would definitely be a steal for them. If he falls out the top 5 even, I think that's a good pickup for any team that needs a shooting guard, small forward type player. With the 10th overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks are selecting once again, and I have them picking up Romeo Langford. He didn't have the best season in Indiana last year. Indiana didn't make the March Madness tournament, and Langford didn't shoot so well from 3. But if his shots end up falling, he would be a nice backcourt mate to Trae Young, and the Hawks would have a lot of young talented players in Herter, John Collins, and in this case, I have them picking Jackson Hayes with the 8th pick. So the Hawks are going to be on the come up pretty soon, especially in the Eastern Conference. This team's going to be looking nice. With the 11th overall pick, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Brandon Clark. Just like I said about Hunter and Culver, I feel like because of his play in the tournament, his draft stock is most likely going to rise. He's one of the older players in this draft, being 22. I know, old, right? In NBA years, though, it's like 50. So he's a perfect Taj Gibson replacement. And with Karl Anthony Towns, that would be a nice little duo there. He's not necessarily a shooter, so that could be a problem with Andrew Wiggins being on the court with them at the same time, but could definitely be a good backup or future starter for the team. The 12th overall pick, I have the Charlotte Hornets selecting Sekou Doumbouya. Now, the Hornets are in a lose-lose situation, whether they lose Kemba Walker or they sign him to a max contract. They're not going to be good next season unless they magically get a max contract player that isn't named Nick Batum. So why not go for a super young 18-year-old with a ton of upside that can potentially be, I don't want to say a Giannis type player, but could be a Giannis type project where in 2 to 3 years he could be helping the Hornets win some more games than they currently are. Plus it should help them adjust to the NBA game, considering Tony Parker and Nick Batum are there, the French connection. If they're there, that is. With the 13th overall pick, I have the Miami Heat selecting Rui Hachimura. The Heat's roster is a mess. They have a ton of the same positions, and I feel like Rui can be a good James Johnson replacement. Play the small forward, power forward. The Heat have a bunch of guys that can play a bunch of positions, so he'll be able to fit in right away, especially with the Heat trying to contend for a playoff spot. I feel because of his age, he'll definitely be able to help out a playoff team. And people are saying he could be a steal of the draft no matter where he goes. And with the 14th pick, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Kevin Porter Jr. Not as lucrative of a pick that the Boston Celtics probably wanted. And just like the Lakers and Knicks pick, who knows if the Boston Celtics are going to keep this pick. But if they do, and if Kyrie leaves, Kevin Porter would be a nice guard to add to the roster. But if he does get picked here, he most likely won't get that much minutes, considering the Boston Celtics are a contender apparently, even though they got knocked out in the second round. But it's a pick for the future. So those are my draft predictions of the 2019 NBA draft. Doing just a lottery picks, as you can see. Let me know who you have getting selected where. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my list? And let me know whoever I missed. Leave a like on the video, share it around, and check out some of these other videos before you go. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.